If you're new to leading a team, you are no doubt scouring the internet looking for free training, podcasts, books, whatever you can get your hands on, right? And that's great. And learning from these formal situations should be just a small part of your development. The Center for Creative Leadership presents the 70-20-10 model. You may have heard of it. This states that 10% of how we teach leaders new skills is through formal training, like going to a class. 20% should be in some type of social setting, learning from each other. Maybe there's a formal mentorship program at the company. And then 70% of how we develop our skills comes from presented challenges in the workplace, experience, trying new things, failing, reflecting, coming up with new ways to do things. This model came from research that was done in the 1980s by a trio of researchers who asked over 200 executives how they learned and developed their skills. They reported that 10% of their development came from formal training, 20% came from watching each other, observing, having conversation with people, and then 70% of their development was a result of having challenges in the workplace and their experiences. That evolved into the best practice, or that 70-20-10 model that so many of us follow today. The social learning theory supports that 20% of that 70-20-10 model. The social learning theory states that people learn by observing, imitating, and modeling each other. If you watch any child with an adult, you can see them mimic their behaviors, mimic their language. This is how we learn about the world and how we grow. As kids, we're learning from our parents, our siblings, the other kids at school. We as humans are social creatures, and that's how we learn about the world. In a leadership development perspective, we are watching other leaders around us. Here's an example. Let's say you're in a meeting, whether you're in person or on Zoom, and the group is trying to make a decision. And many people have different opinions. Maybe they're pushing their own agenda. And at one point, the leader shuts it all down and says, I've heard what you had to say. I'm going to make my own decision. That's certainly one approach to decision making. You can reflect on that and decide, if I were in that situation, this is what I would have done or what I would have said. And then when you're the leader in that group that's making that decision, you can decide to shift your behavior and your response based on what you learned by observing the last person in that situation. Meeting with the same group of people on a regular basis is also social learning. And it's a great way to process that 10% of the formal learning, whether you've gone to a class, you've read a book, you attended some training. Being with that group is a chance for you to try out new ideas, take a concept that you learned from that formal training and try it on. Meeting with the same people on a regular basis is also called social learning. You can call it group coaching, you can call it a mastermind, but it's the time for you to process the information that you're getting from formal training and apply those concepts to your situations, put your tone on the language, the tools, techniques, and try it out. And then when you go back to your job and interacting with your team or your manager or your peers, you apply it. Maybe you didn't do it quite right. You observe, maybe you've made a mistake. You can reflect and think, the next time I'm in that situation, I know a better way to phrase that or a better way to respond to that type of situation. One reason group masterminds work is because, quite honestly, leadership challenges are not unique. No matter what company you're in, no matter what industry you're in, there will always be miscommunication, a need to give meaningful feedback. There'll be conflict. There'll be a need to have a difficult conversation. No industry has the corner on these types of skills that are needed. When you're in a group of diverse people with different experiences, history, ways of responding to situations, you're so enriching your options, your language, options for how you're going to respond to certain situations. With the right people, you can create a safe environment. So people who are new to leading teams can ask those questions they may not want to ask their boss. They can ask for help, admit they don't know the answer. Another advantage and brilliance of group coaching or a mastermind is that's the place to practice things that you've learned in a formal training, whether it was online or in person, or you read a book. You get to practice competencies that you just can't practice in isolation, like compassion and empathy and emotional intelligence. In his book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about the mastermind. In fact, he says, in every instance where you find a man or woman with outstanding achievement in any calling, you will find that they have been a success as a result of a mastermind alliance. He, Napoleon Hill, hung out with people like Ben Franklin and Henry Ford and Harvey Firestone. The most successful people in our history got there because they surrounded themselves with successful people who held each other accountable to following through with what they were up to in the world. You can be a part of that too. When group members are willing, they are more apt to think more deeply and creatively, challenge the status quo, and discover new and effective ways to think about situations and solve problems. If you want to build a better mousetrap, you could ask another person who's building a mousetrap, or you could ask someone who needs to buy the mousetrap or is going to market the mousetrap, or someone who doesn't even know what a mousetrap is. You might even want to ask the mouse. The point is, if you try to build the best mousetrap that you can in isolation, you're losing out on an opportunity to gain from the experiences of all these people around you, whether it's, again, in a group coaching situation or a mastermind. They're more productive, they're more fun than learning on your own, and they're less expensive than private coaching. If you're interested in learning how our group coaching programs work, click below on the Contact Us link.